Trump has declared that the Strait of Hormuz is open. NATO looks like it's falling apart. He has pulled the rug from everybody. What is going on? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Isn't it, Mark? That's what we're going to talk about in this video.
Well, yeah, why not? I mean, welcome to Rich Does Woo-Woo Conspiracy Theory Spiritual Stuff with
with the markatwoodshow.com, right? But now you told me this has all happened in the last couple of hours, because I was recording a video with Brendan O'Connell about the history of the British intelligence service. But tell us what's happened with Trump just now, and what's it all about, and what's going on?
Well, it's 6 o'clock on Friday the 17th. 17th of April. And
Yeah.
2 hours ago, Trump's been on all over Truth Social. This is after slagging off the Pope, which I thought was very good. And he's responded to the Pope today by saying, we're going to make Lebanon great again. Right? So he's really going to annoy the Pope. And he's just opened the Strait of Hormuz, which means gas prices are going to plummet. And he's slagging off Keir Starmer, and he's bringing down NATO. And in the last 6 weeks, he's managed to flush out all the fake MAGAs, like potentially Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Ian Carroll, these people that have been, even somebody in England who I won't mention, who was like pro-Q, pro-Trump, and then everybody was calling him a psychopath in the last 6-7 weeks. And if they'd read The Art of War, they'd have known about the strategy, like the madman strategy, which is what he's been doing.
Okay, tell me. I haven't read The Art of War, right? And I know people talk about it. So what is the madman strategy?
Well, it's just when you're constantly putting the enemy on the back foot. So all of his crazy tweets where he's swearing and he's saying we bombed this and we bombed all the ships, and it makes him sound like a lunatic. And what that did was flush out all his fake supporters who started turning against him. And everything's a flush out. This is the sting. We talked about this on a previous show. And this is my opinion. I could be wrong, could be completely wrong. And I'm happy to hold my hands up if I am. But you're watching a strategy that is so sublime in my eyes. The madman strategy is just like, you run at your enemy screaming and shouting your head off, and they go, "Oh, geez, he's mad," and it just flushes them out.
Yeah,
they don't know what to do with him. And it shows up people's true colors as well. If you want to find out if somebody's a coward, stick them, put a parachute on them and throw them out of a plane and see what happens. It's like, which happened to me once. I fell out of a plane with the Red Devils at Aldershot in 1987, but that's another story. Yeah, so I think it's extraordinary.
Just on the madman strategy, if I may say something, right? So many of my friends and family will say to me, like, he's a clown, he's a moron, he's a bozo. And I keep saying to them, he's doing it deliberately. And what happens then is people they underestimate him.
Yeah, it's so simple, actually, when you think of it. But if people are looking at things in a kind of normal sense, I mean, pre-COVID, normal politics, then yeah, of course he looks completely bananas. But you're getting rid of a multi-thousand-year death cult and trying to clean out, tens of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles of worldwide underground tunnels, and saving children from trafficking and much, much worse at the same time. I think this whole thing with Iran was done years ago. It was already done. We've just had the whole theatre of it to flush out. It's just brilliant. That's my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who disagree with that, but yeah, I've said to you on previous shows, you either get him or you don't. And those that don't, it doesn't matter. He's not there to be popular. He's there to do a job. I mean, he's doing it pretty well by the looks of it. Although there are questions around some of this. Like, there was an interview he did the other day, and he said he was talking to a Christian audience, and he said, "You Christians, I don't understand. You're all rebels, but you never vote. Why do you not?" He said, "But you're never going to have to vote again in a few years. This is the last time. This year is the last time you're ever going to need to vote." And I thought that was very interesting. At the same time, Musk has been pushing again. Last night he was tweeting about the universal basic high basic income, which is also very interesting, because on the one hand, that's communism. On the other hand, it's a utopia. So there's a lot of I call them quadruple edged swords because there's always more than one objective or more than two objectives with the kind of comms that these guys put out, because they're part of a huge operation.
Mm.
I'm doing Trump's hands while I'm speaking, but it's that's what I think, and it's not a very popular opinion. I've been shot at and shouted at and abused every day now for 6 years minimum. Well, longer than that, but it's just how my intuition and knowledge and research just points me in that direction, and I'm kind of sticking with it because you either have faith or you don't, in a
Yeah.
creator. And I've said to you many times, there's a lot of evil in this world.
Yes.
And if you don't believe that there's an equal and opposite force of good, then we're really screwed. And I just don't think we are. I think we're actually going into something amazing. And I think it's going to happen fairly quickly, like with UFO disclosure and stuff like this, because of the hoo-ha that's being made around July the 4th. I think that is a kind of potentially second declaration of independence.
Okay, well, we'll come to that. I want to go back to what he's announced. So what's because I don't know anything about it. What's going to happen now with Israel and Lebanon and
he's told
Iran?
Israel.
Yeah.
He's publicly said to everybody, you are not allowed to do any more bombing. That's the end of that. Let's end it. So
he's posted that on Truth Social?
Yeah, today. I've got it in front of me somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be quite something. But he's Bibi Netanyahu has got control of him. I've been told that.
I know. It's hilarious. That's not Benjamin Netanyahu. It's so obvious that that's not him. There was a video of him the other week with 6 fingers. Now,
yes.
6 fingers either means he's a Nephilim, which he probably is, or it's AI generated, which it probably was. It's probably both. But he's been long. I think he's been long gone.
Oh, God. Yes, I know. I think that as well, right? So let me just have a look at Trump's Truth Social post. I'm not on Truth Social. I am on Crypto Rich YT on X. I think you're on X as well, but there's a commentary of Donald Trump's Truth. I may not be able to find it right now. Iran.
Here.
Yeah, what does it say?
Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage. Naval blockade will remain in full force and in effect. It pertains to Iran only until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. This should go very quickly in that most of the points are already negotiated. Now to me, that's Trump code, because when he says it's already negotiated, what he's saying is that this was done ages ago. Right. So we're watching it play out. Iran has just announced the Strait of Iran is fully open. Strait of Iran, not Hormuz, is and ready for full passage. Thank you. Then it says about the US will get rid of all nuclear dust created by their B-2 bombers. That's I won't read all of that. And basically, what's going to happen is that the price of oil is just going to drop through the floor, which is really interesting considering the protest that just happened here in the last week in Ireland.
Yeah.
Because I think the whole fuel thing was created in order to get people off their asses and protest. And what happened in Ireland with the protests is that you had hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets, mainly farmers and hauliers originally, but then lots of other people. And if you imagine 100,000 people out in the streets, maybe 3, 4, 5% of them completely aware that the country is run by satanic pedivores, and maybe 20% of them are kind of in the middle and realize it's not just, but 50% of them might have been there just for the price of diesel. And now, because there is, it's ridiculous. The tax in this country, it's insane. This is a communist dictatorship. It's horrible. But people are, if it took the price of diesel to get people off their backsides and onto the streets, fantastic, because they've now mingled with all these other people who know other stuff. So the awakening is like completely unstoppable in this country, and that's going to have a domino effect across Britain and Europe, I think, in the next few weeks.
Okay, but there are still ramifications. And the other thing is Zero Hedge did an article today about the number of, or I saw something on X about the number of refineries that have mysteriously caught fire in the last few weeks or so. Just like a contagion or a virus that sets refineries on fire. And there's still going to be a sort of lag effect, I think.
Possibly. I mean, if you go back 5 years, there was. Do you remember in 20? I think it was 2020, 21. There was a lot of mysterious fires of food processing plants in America.
That was still happening up until last year as well.
Yeah,
Like
well,
chicken farms being set on fire and
no, not the farms, the food processing
right.
plants.
Yeah, no, I remember that as well.
Now, in my opinion, that was the food processing plants were being taken out as part of the military operation because they were processing human meat.
Oh God, schmuck.
Right. And that's why McDonald's is constantly being referenced by Trump. You know, there was a woman delivered McDonald's on a video to the White House the other day. And I think McDonald's is a code and they're being trolled. We've been fed human meat for ever. You know, even in every packet of crisps has got that horrible every vaccine contains,
Yeah.
human embryos, for God's sake. It's the same thing. So a lot of it is like this oil refinery is burning down. I don't know exactly what's going on, but in my opinion, that will be part of a strategy to highlight what it did in Ireland really was highlight how much Ireland is dependent upon outside force. You know, what Trump's all about is making every country sovereign.
Mm.
Energy sovereignty, financial sovereignty, food sovereignty. Everybody's starting to realize that this is the most important thing that we need as nations worldwide. It's not just an island problem. It's not just an American problem. It's everywhere. You know, we need to become, and it's crazy that we're not. And the only reason that we're not sovereign, as in responsible and able to support ourselves in each country, is because the globalists, the WEF, the satanic elites deliberately created a world where everybody was dependent on them. You know, and the Strait of Hormuz was like the focal point for that, you know, because the whole world could be held to ransom by the British Empire, who controlled Iran, but who controls the British Empire? And then you've got the hidden hand going on. So, you know, I think all of this is about exposing all of that, but people having to realize this when it hits them in the pocket. I mean, a genocide was not enough because people couldn't prove that that was true, and it was too much for people to cope with to believe that the government was trying to kill them 5 years ago. But once the fuel prices became the straw that broke the camel's back, and then they start talking, and this is great. I'm very happy about what's going on.
Okay. Now, you say that everybody realizes how important it is to be energy self-sufficient. Everybody except for Keir Starmer and Miliband in the UK, our energy secretary, because Britain could be self-sufficient with all the gas and the coal and the oil. And you said that Trump said something about Starmer. What did he say about Starmer?
He's had a pop at him today. I only read it briefly just before I came on the show. Starmer and Miliband and all of these are all actors.
Yes, Starmer's not a decision maker.
No, he's not. I don't think he's the original Starmer. I think it's literally an actor playing him, and they're playing out these policies to show people how horrific these people really were. Right? It's the same as the fake Joe Biden presidency. America had to go through 4 years of this doddering idiot paedophile, right, in charge of the most powerful country in the world. I mean, who took that seriously? It's mind blowing to me. I mean, I did a video in 2020 saying that's not Joe Biden. It's obviously not Joe Biden, but people believed it. I mean, there was a guy locally who went and shook his hand in County Mayo, a few years ago, believing that was the real Joe Biden, with his son Hunter, who's walking around the world freely with everything that was on his laptop. I mean, come on, what is wrong? It's like this. The slumber that people are in seems to require this drip, drip, slow. It's frustrating for people like me because we've known it for a long time. But I think Starmer and Miliband, I mean, these are ridiculous policies that they've been implementing, and the British people had to wake up. The Irish people, everybody had to wake up. And we're in our Biden years now. So Starmer and this Micheál Martin in Ireland are just playing these roles to get the people out of their slumber, so they start to realize, well, we're going to take our power back. And I think part of the thing with the oil refiners, this is just off the top of my head because I haven't looked into it, but I know that free energy is completely possible and already exists out there, right? So Tesla did it with Wardenclyffe Tower 120 years ago when Morgan funded that free energy stuff, and then he burnt the towers down. I've got a friend of mine has made a battery pack that takes 10 quid's worth of electricity and powers his home for a whole month, so 95% of his electricity bill has disappeared just because he's made an efficient battery device that's better than a Tesla battery. It's not that difficult. There's people in Ireland. There's a guy I was watching on James Conway show the other day who's been working with levitation, with water turbines in the rivers. We free. There's lots of different types of free energy.
Yeah.
The whole solar thing is like completely inefficient and a bit of a scam. But 0 point energy, I believe, is coming to everybody, which will change the world.
Yeah.
So the energy crisis that has been, I believe, manufactured is to show the world how fragile it is when a small number of people can control something that they've been brainwashing into believing is a fossil fuel for our whole lives. I mean, I remember being in school in 1979, and our science teacher, Mr. Adams, God bless him, said the world's going to run out of oil in 10 years. Now, that was in 1979. So we've all had it put into us that this stuff, the oil just comes out of the earth. Like,
that's right. It's abiotic.
It's not, it's not a fossil fuel. So I believe that this crisis it's just working on so many levels where people are going, firstly, why is my government taxing me 60% on the gas in my car? They could solve it like that. Even if it was for 3 months, just take the tax off the gas and everybody's happy. But no. And that's what proves to me that it's a movie that we're watching. Because if any government that wanted to stay in power would have placated them instead of pepper spraying 14-year-olds, instead of sending the army in on the streets to farmers. I mean, it's ridiculous in many ways, but it's achieving the objective, I think, which is people are just going to say, right, this has got to end. Not just this government's got to end, but this whole system has to end. And I think that it's necessary when you've got allegedly 8 billion people on the planet. I'm not sure that's true, but when you've got billions of people, you need to get them to decide, oh, that's a good idea, instead of them being told it's a good idea by somebody they don't like Donald Trump.
Okay. Now, tell us what happened in Ireland, because I understand the demonstrations have now stopped, but they were quite, they pulled in the Garda, the Irish police were in. They were being quite brutal from some of the stuff I saw, and then they pulled in the army, and then I heard reports of many Garda phoning in sick, and then some army saying, we're not going to do this, saying, reporting themselves unfit for duty. So give us a lowdown, because one of the things about Ireland, it's a small country. It's not a major European power. However, it is a lovely country with a lovely people. And I think it suffered really, really badly under this whole Great Reset project with the open borders, the level of injections that have been forced upon people. So to tell us what happened, how's it going?
Cool. Where do you start? Yeah, I mean, I've been observing it. I've known a lot of there's people in this country that have been out protesting every single day for the last 6 years. People,
and it's been all over Ireland, not just like in Dublin.
Yeah, well, it's mainly been centred around the ports where the fuel comes in. So you Cork and Galway and Dublin seem to be the most focused upon areas, and they were blockaded last week. I was on a road trip and I had to sat nav bypassed most of the protests because I had to get home, and it took 7 hours to do a 4-hour journey. So it was, and there were gas stations that were saying no more diesel, we're out of fuel, but then it kind of slid away, and but the protesters have not slid away, only to they're not finished. They're just regathering their strength again, and they're going to go at it again, I believe. But it won't be over. I don't think it's going to be over fuel this time, because I think the fuel prices are going to drop. But what it's done is it's got everybody in the country talking about tax and fuel and the cost of living. I mean, I was reading the other day about a nurse that was sleeping in her car because she couldn't afford the petrol at the end of the month after all the taxes and everything else. I mean, the rents have gone up ridiculously, and it's impossible to get a property even in the west of Ireland, which used to be cheap and plentiful. And for the last 6 or 7 years, it's just been impossible but that's another flush out, you see, and I think that's the same in the UK. The flush out has been to expose the landlords that have taken the huge amounts of money that they've got for, illegal immigrants and housing them over Irish people, and things like homelessness that didn't exist really in
Yeah.
Ireland 10, 15 years ago. And now I think it's up to certainly over 12,000 homeless people. And that's like just crazy because, if you were here 7 years ago in the west of Ireland, there were just thousands of empty houses that were still there as a hangover from the Celtic Tiger that,
Mm.
that were just empty, So it is extraordinary. But this had to happen with Ireland because Ireland's been. If you ever read a book, I always give you books to read, and I know you've never got time to read them, but I've actually been talking about this book for a long time, and I think it's one of the most important books ever written. Actually, it was by Andrew Power, who's no longer with us, and it's called Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, and he wrote that in 2005, and it's out of print. I've been spending most of my day trying to track his family down so I can reprint this book. And in that book, he talks about the fact that Ireland had 16 layers of black magic put upon it compared to 2 in most other countries. And the reason for that is because of the power of the land. The British Isles are extremely powerful in terms of the ley lines and all of this. And this is why I think the reptilians, for want of a better term, centered the focus of power around Britain and subjugated Ireland and battered it for so long. 1,500 years ago, they got rid of the Druids. The Romans came in with the patrician that they renamed St. Patrick in the 1700s and made a saint, even though he didn't exist, so he couldn't be canonized, and gave this nonsensical story about kicking the snakes out of Ireland. Really, the snakes meant the knowledge, right? Because the Druids had the knowledge of the land. It was the land of saints and scholars. The place is just extraordinary. It also, with its megalithic structures everywhere, which are all remnants of Atlantis. Atlantean ancient technology is all around us here. Portal tombs, stone circles, cairns around here like Carrakeel and Queen Maeve's tomb and stuff. These are incredibly powerful structures based on the same technology that the pyramids have got. And there's this massive link between Egypt and Ireland. And Scotia was the great granddaughter of Akhenaten, who was the pharaoh of Egypt for 17 years. There's that number again. And he was a mystic and possibly a giant, probably a giant. And Scotia came here, had this relationship, and then went to Scotland. Scotia, Scotland, it's all connected. And the Giant's Causeway, which is a real thing, and they've got all this. It cracks me up in Northern Ireland. They've got 2 hilarious, nonsensical, what I call propaganda in bricks and mortar. One is the Titanic Museum, which is just continuing a massive lie, which ended up with the Federal Reserve being created. And the other one is the visitor centre next to the Giant's Causeway that tries to convince people that all that hexagonal formations was formed by volcanic lava. So, there's loads of stuff. There's just loads of stuff. And the levels of black magic that Andrew Power talks about in that book is something that everybody needs to understand, because most people watching the world of politics have literally no idea that magic is a real thing, and magic is used and rituals are used to subjugate the human race. And without that understanding, we have no chance of fighting back, because the word occult literally means hidden. But once it's not hidden, once it's de-occulted, then the power disappears. So, I think part of my job as a idiot in a kitchen that has read a few things and knows a bit about a lot of things is that, I'd say everybody watching this should go and look up magic, look up the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, for example. W.B. Yeats and Aleister Crowley were part of that 100 years ago. Yeats was casting black magic over this place 100 years. Some people might disagree with that, but this stuff is like deeply embedded. And if you look at the Grand Lodges of Ireland and Scotland, these are ancient. These are some of the earliest Masonic. I'm saying now. Look, I've got a checkerboard right in front of me. What John Hamer's book, The Falsification of Science. You should interview him.
What was his name? What's the name of the book? The Falsification of Science.
That one's called The Falsification of Science, which was his follow-up to The Falsification of History. 2 of the best books ever written, in my opinion.
And the name of the author?
John Hamer.
John Hamer.
I'll give you his details.
Okay.
M-E-R. Yeah, I mean, I try to give these to the kids because every time they go to school, I have to undo the programming. you know, and we have really good chats about that. And this is the good thing. A lot of the kids are far more awake than we were 30, 40 years ago. And, you know, they're spreading all this on TikTok and social media. And it's all going to come good, in my opinion.
When?
Well, so we're in the middle of it now. I mean, it's like, I don't think it's like a time-driven event. It's an event-driven event. So, you know, the insight that I got about the fuel protests in Ireland were, you know, because I was interested to know if it was all part of an operation, but the feeling that I was getting was that it was like the fuel price situation was like lighting a tinderbox, and then that sparked something that was people's consciousness, people's anger, people's fed upness of the government here was at a point where it just needed a little nudge, and then boom, and they all went out in the streets. And if you don't, I mean, the Irish are the nicest people on the planet. I mean,
no, lovely.
I mean, I think everybody's nice, to be honest. Most people in most countries, but they're really, really nice, and they feel guilty about stuff, and they want to take care of people, and that's how they've got away with the mass immigration. That's how they've got away, because the same argument gets used to them. Well, you know, the Irish all left, went to America, and they, you know, no, they didn't get kicked out, did they? The big difference between the Irish that went to America, I mean, most Irish people don't even realize that the Irish were slaves 400 years ago. They were the first slaves, white slaves. So that argument just can't wash anymore. But it was very difficult in this country, I think. I mean, I'm talking as a blow-in, which is a name for an outsider that's living here. I believe in immigration. You know, there's a lot of immigration that's done a lot of great things for this country. You know, the Eastern Europeans that came here 30 years ago were amazing during COVID because they recognized communism when they saw it, and they refused to do this and did do this and all of that. And that was really good. And they have a lot of skills that have been taken away from the indigenous population, like how to raise and kill chickens and have eggs and bacon, you know, simple stuff that has been taken away. This country got, it's 800 years plus of horrific treatment by the British. But, you know, if you look at what's happened in 1963, the electrification got centralized. You know, this town in particular was run by a big wheel in the river, right? So it had free energy. But then, no, can't do that anymore. We're going to centralize it, go on the grid. And then in 1973, this country, like Britain, went into the common market, which was the backdoor into the EU, which is something that destroyed the economies of both countries and centralized back to Europe. And then you've got, what else happened? 1971 in this country, the water system got centralized. And if you go back and look up RTE, which is like the BBC in Ireland, videos of, you know, old people in 1971 being interviewed, being really upset that their water, their local water supply was being taken away, and they now had to take it from the mains system, which is obviously the thing that's been poisoning them. This is the most fluoridated country on the planet.
Wow.
Right? There was a girl protesting here 20 years ago. I know her ex-boyfriend, called Fluoride Girl, and she was amazing, highlighting all this stuff. She got attacked and destroyed, you know, not literally, but you know, they just don't let you speak out against anything. You know, I met a guy who's a druid here who was speaking out about structured water 25, 30 years ago, and he was the same. They just destroyed him, and they do terrible things. They close your bank accounts. Reputation gets destroyed. In a small country like this, it's very easy for people to just fear people talking badly about them. But what I'm seeing is, you know, and I think that's why a blow-in like me has done what I've done. I mean, I'm not the only one, but there's lots of people that have done amazing things here. There's some incredible people rising up right now that I've got, you know, Ireland really needs a leader right now. You know, there's no clear candidate to become the new Taoiseach outside of the political system.
Right. I mean, there was Conor McGregor. He was going for president, and they killed him off. I mean, they smeared him or slandered him, did they not?
Well, yeah, they did, but they, you know, they tried to accuse him of lots of things, and he pulled out, and I'm not sure why. But he's speaking out again now, and maybe it was strategic because there's, I mean, Conor McGregor would be a great president, I think, but you know, I don't know if it's right. There's other people that I'm seeing that have really got the spirit of God raging through them, and they've had enough. And it's righteous indignation, not anger, is the key. I
Right.
mean, even the name Ireland, it was 1937, I think it was actually officially called Ireland. And the word ire, I-R-E, means anger, Angerland. You know, they've deliberately destroyed it. This is why in the early 2010s, when the Catholic Church refused to punish the paedophile priests, hundreds of them, loads of people turned their back on the church, but at the same time, they turned their back on God. And I think that was deliberate because they wanted to create a nation that was subjugated by the Catholic Church for so long into a nation that suddenly had no faith at all in any creator or anything. And
And
suddenly you
thus,
had
and thus no anchor.
yeah, exactly. And then you got a whole population, not a whole population, but a lot of people then were adrift, you know,
Mm.
spiritually. And that was perfect. They were softened up, ready for the killer punches that have been hit on them for so long now. But they are standing up, and you do not mess with the fighting Irish because once that fire's lit, that's it. I don't think there's any going back. And I think hopefully we're gonna see the dissolution, the end of this awful, awful government here, and a complete rebuilding of society from the ground up based on sovereign principles.
Right. Now, one thing that's in the way that would need to be addressed is the vast number of migrants in Ireland. Was it 20% of the population, recent arrivals? No, most of them not working. And it's not even like they're coming, say, just from one country like Algeria. Everybody, all this 20% from Algeria, or all this 20% from Ukraine. No, they're a hodgepodge, this one and that one and this one and that one. So there's no unity between them. I believe that many of them are Muslims, but they'll have different traditions because there'll be Muslims from Nigeria, Muslims from Pakistan, Muslims from an Arab nation. So there's no cohesiveness even amongst them, that they can't unite. So how is that going to get addressed? Because they're still bringing them over.
Yeah, well, you know, this is another tender, tender? No, I can't think of the word.
Tinder.
It's an explosive subject, right?
Right.
Um, I think that you know there's a lot of people that are saying in the UK. I mean, John O'Looney's saying it in the UK, and there's people saying it here. The majority of these immigrants are illegal young men without their families, left their families back at home. They get given credit card, they're given a place to stay. There are training camps, and a lot of people believe that these guys and there was a video I was watching earlier this afternoon saying that Pakistani men are being recruited to join the guards because they can't get any Irish people to become guards anymore. And
Mm.
then you've got this whole replacement strategy going on with the armed forces and the guards and everything else. And the you know, John O'Looney again says this in the UK that it's a sleeping army waiting to pounce on the public. Is that true? I'm not sure. I think what we're seeing is a facsimile of a strategy that was true. I do believe that that was a strategy that was definitely the Kalergi plan. A lot of people in this country are aware of that,
Yeah.
and I think you know having trying to get an army to turn against its own people is not easy, right? So you would have to get a replacement army coming in. I do think that that was 100% a strategy that the New World Order was putting into place. I think we're seeing a facsimile of that strategy based upon economic reasons. So the government here literally said, please come to Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Please, and then word gets around the world, oh, we can go there. There's lots of money, free. They don't check your passports. They give you somewhere to live. I don't blame those guys coming here. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a poor country and you're like, hang on a minute, I can go there for 6 months and get more money than I could get in this country for 10 years.
But
You
also,
know?
after 3 years, you get Irish citizenship, I understand.
Yeah, well, this I think is all
And then
part of
you get
yeah,
into the EU and you can get into Britain.
well, exactly. And I think that I think I said to you on the phone the other week, and you said, "Don't tell me that." So I'm going to tell you it again. I think the answer, there's one thing that can happen, and whether this is going to happen or not, I don't know. But there's a lot of things pointing towards this being a possible solution, and that possible solution is the fabled and often maligned idea of a revaluation of currency worldwide.
Right.
Because once you have a revaluation of currency where all currencies are on a par, you get rid of all the currency markets instantly, and then every country is rich because one dinar is worth $1 American. But in order to have your share of that money as an indigenous person, you have to go back home. Now, there's a lot, the migrants that are in Ireland, I think most of them would love to go back home if the money was there, and they would go back voluntarily and peacefully.
Yeah, because families at home, better weather.
It's their culture. It's their home. It's their home.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't go back home? I mean, I would. Anybody would. And I think that's my hunch that is the way that this is all going to be solved very quickly.
Okay, but that would require some sort of overarching global organization that's going to dispense this money. Then there needs to be this money in place, and then it needs to be something that's going to deal with inequalities of production and effectiveness. And I'm not an economist, and I'm sure Tom Luongo could explain this much, much better than me, but there are inherent inequalities within any economy. So that say, for example, comparing the Greek economy with the, I suppose, German economy of yesterday, right, produces way more wealth. How would that work?
Well, if you had parity in terms of currency, then immediately all those currencies across the globe that have been deliberately decimated by the cabal would suddenly be on a par with the American dollar, right? So you'd have the same purchasing power. Now, the problem with this part of this story is that there's a lot of people out there making a lot of money talking about this. I don't do that. I hardly ever talk about this. It's just there are things pointing towards this being a reality. That so many of them, I can just think of two off the top of my head. One is what I said earlier about Elon Musk is pushing hard on this universal high basic income.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's pushing that forward based upon the Elon Musk story, which is AI and robots will produce so much and they don't need paying and they never stop working, that they will exceed all human desires and demands very quickly, and therefore nobody will need to work, and there'll be loads of money and everybody can just get paid a high income. I don't like that idea. It's a communistic idea, but it's interesting that he's talking about it very hard right now.
Right.
The other
and just on the communist thing, it leaves people dependent upon the state.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I hate that.
Yeah, the state can then say, okay, you have to fulfill certain requirements, like having your hourly boosters, the safe and effective injections.
Well, I've had mine today, haven't you?
I've had 12 boosters today.
Good man.
So I'm ahead of you. I want to keep my immune system up.
Yeah, good man. Good man.
And but as you can see, I'm wearing 12 masks.
Yeah.
One for each booster.
And still looking good.
Yes. Still able to breathe.
Yeah. Amazing. The other thing is that 6 years ago, I started noticing that international bank transfers, which I did a lot of. I had an international business, so I was doing these all the time. Some of these things were taking 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, in some cases 2 or 3 weeks. They all started happening really quick. Suddenly, I was getting transfers happening in minutes. There's only one thing that could have done that, and that is XRP.
Yeah, that's what you're going to say.
Replacing Swift. I think XRP's been there for quite a long time, and they've been running 2 systems and testing and da-da-da-da. That's my opinion. And if that's
all opinion, and for people who don't know, because this isn't a cryptocurrency channel, my older ones were. XRP is a cryptocurrency, call it another type of Bitcoin, but it's very, very fast and very, very cheap to send. And people talk about the quantum financial system, but also how it's going to be used within the modern banking system to do bank transfers, international bank transfers.
Yeah, it gets rid of the middleman. I mean,
yeah.
And if you go back to Trump's first term, he did a big speech about middlemen being taken out of the equation, especially in relation to pharmaceutical drugs back then. But he was telling us then that all middlemen are going to be taken out of the. So, one of the other things that's happened with Hormuz is the Lloyd's of London, the biggest, you know, insurance company, full of middlemen, right? The banking system full of middlemen. They're all going
Well,
because they are the parasites that are leeching off our labor. So the other aspect to the revaluation of currency is like with XRP and the other X coins, the IS2002, I think it is. There is rumors, and I think valid rumors, that those currencies will be based upon precious metals. When I was working in the crypto space in 2017 in London, that was the first thing I was like, well, why aren't we bringing out a cryptocurrency based on gold? Why aren't we
mm,
bringing out one based on silver and palladium or copper? These are God's money. Precious metals are God's money. So, and if you look at the work of Michael Tellinger, he talks about the fact that there's three things in common in every single religion in history. That is gold, slavery, and serpents. These are as old as the hills. So I think if there is a revaluation and the money is based on true value, with a digital aspect, because we need to do international transfers. But if you just think about the sheer trillions a month that would be saved with XRP versus Swift, just because of the transfer times alone,
yeah.
just the transfer times alone. Because what was happening, you'd do a transfer, it'd go to Swift, and then they trade it and make money off it, and then 3 days later they might deposit that into your friend's bank account. So it's just everybody's just creaming off. You get rid of all of that, you suddenly got an incredibly efficient financial world, and we've never had that, but most people don't like. In this country, I don't think that the true level of taxation has been understood by people, and
Mm,
now they're talking about it because of the fuel crisis, right? Um, Most people don't understand what the fractional reserve banking system is. I studied economics for 5 years. Nobody mentioned it.
yeah.
It was 15 years later, I think, I read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. And when I read that, I was like, what the what? I was like, this is nuts, because this explains it all,
Yeah.
money as debt. It's all debt. So you got to all the debt's going to be wiped out by crypto, I think, by Trump, like that. And I think it's going to be extraordinary, because people can't imagine a world where you've got no debt, you're not paying interest anymore, and you've got free electricity. I mean, just those three things alone will have a massive effect. And then what the effect then will be is that people, it's already happening. People are starting to realize they've got to grow their own food. That's happening. People are realizing that the food in the supermarkets is poisoned, a lot of it, with, you know, cannibalistic substances. I mean, it's like awakening from that kind of hell is taking a long time and requires huge events. And I do think we're going to have a much, much bigger event than Iran was fairly soon.
A similar kind of an event or something completely different?
No, I think it was something much, much bigger, bigger than 9/11, something biblical. I think we're in, I mean, I use the word biblical not to diss any religion. It's just, you
A
know,
big, like
God type
really,
stuff.
really big, something that'll be remembered for generations.
Well, I think that's what has to happen. I mean, I get visions, and 6 years ago, me and my son had the same vision about the same time, and that is like a nuclear sized event. I don't even believe nuclear weapons are real, but a nuclear war size event, a lockdown, a massive lockdown, and there's millions and millions of really evil people in this world, and I don't think they're people actually. They're either possessed or they're hybrids, and I think that's why that film, Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg film, the timing of that is really interesting. I think it's really interesting how much disclosure is coming out about, from all over the world. There's videos of these spheres everywhere. I mean, I interviewed the guy that authored The Sphere. I'm looking for his book, The Sphere Network, the other week, which is extremely interesting, because I've seen these ships all my life, and that is a real thing.
Okay, okay. With the Sphere Network,
Okay.
you're talking about those silver orbs that I've seen occasionally on videos on X that
Mm.
appear out of nowhere, that move really quickly.
Hmm.
Oh, Mark.
Part of an Earth-based super non-human intelligence that is way beyond ours, and that stuff is real. I've been visited by an interdimensional ship right here. I saw a dragon made of light fly over my head over there. I mean,
Okay,
crazy stuff.
no,
I think
you've
I've
got to
said
go
this on my
slowly
podcast.
for me, all right? Okay, let's you say interdimensional ship, and my head is in my hands already, and then you say the other stuff. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck with interdimensional ship, and also what you said that they live on Earth. So these are non-human intelligences that live on Earth. Where in the sea?
Yeah, in the sea, under the ground, in other dimensions. I mean, think about the light spectrum we learnt at school. We can only
Yeah,
see this tiny piece of it.
yeah.
Things bleed through from the other dimensions all the time. That's why people see ghosts and fairies and demons and all sorts of stuff, because this is we are multi-dimensional beings. We are spirits, we are souls, spirits having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. And we are vessels for our souls, but only a fragment of our souls. So we are far, far bigger, which is why the universe is as above so below, because of everything. You're the only one here.
Mm.
I'm the only one here. And people have got to be brought to that understanding by one way or another, because we've been conned. Our entire existence has been a con. So waking people out of that involves having a crazy orange-faced man with blonde hair, I guess, blowing everything up and freaking everybody out to pull them out of the cupboard.
That's right, or out of their complacency or comfort.
And if
Okay,
I'm
so
wrong, we're all dead anyway.
well,
So
yeah, and actually, I listened to one of your great videos this week, because you do regular videos on YouTube, and you said something about how I'm paraphrasing it. People criticize you because you're too optimistic, and what you said was, "Well, the outcome may be the same, but at least I'm going to have a better time between now and then."
Well, that's been the story of my life. I had that at school 50 years ago. People would say, "Why are you so optimistic?" I said, "Well, I have a better time getting there."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're miserable. You're miserable. And then they go, "No, I'm not miserable. I'm a realist." And I'm like, "Well, I don't believe in reality, so see you later." It
Okay.
works for me.
Now, these spheres, how big are these spheres? Who's in them?
Well, that's
How,
interesting. So the size of them, the reason Patrick Jackson wrote a book, he's a guy from Cambridge, he's about 6 years younger than me. And he had paranormal experiences as a kid. Now, I grew up in the next county, so I was interested in him because we grew up in Britain in the 70s and 80s, right? And I had paranormal experiences when I was a kid. So I was like very interested in speaking to him, because he's like a database engineer, and
Mhm.
he's very good at pattern recognition and reverse engineering stuff. So he wanted to firstly investigate paranormal activity, and he went to Britain's most haunted house, where there's this loud banging that happens on a door in the basement, and people pay to go there and stay there and do all this, and they all think it's a poltergeist, and they see this black mass, blah blah blah. Now he realized that there were these small orbs. I think he calls them type 1, 2, and 3 type orbs, they're really small, and they glow white and they zip about. Now, people see these all the times. They think they're fairies. They often exist in basements and attics of buildings because, in his opinion, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's a very interesting hypothesis. These are driven by AI, and they're part of a network, a planetary defense network. So, excuse me, these small spheres, I think they're the type ones. If Patrick's watching, I apologize if I've got it the wrong way around. But there are other ones that go above treetops and mountaintops, and there's tons of videos of those. And there's other ones that are far higher up. And basically, they are, when you see three spheres together, and you'll often see this, they'll move together, often misinterpreted as TR3B because it's three lights in a triangle formation. But there'll be a fourth one behind. And he says they're triangulating to get a three-dimensional scan on approaching ships, and these are the spheres, are the ones that shoot down the alien invaders, for want of a better term. And I'm in a town where there was a UFO crash here in '97. That the UFO Society of Ireland was created because of that crash, because it attracted people here, including an astronomer that works for space agencies across the world and is a certified academic, called Dr. Eamon Ansbro, who set up a space telescope here 25 years ago, and he's recorded 40,000 of these automatically from his system. I think 18 of which are completely irrefutable actual ships. And Eamon Ansbro is very interested because he realised that they were patrolling on a schedule. So Eamon for years has been all over. You can look him up. Has predicted when ships will arrive, and I actually made a video called UFO hunting in the west of Ireland. I did it in December, I think, and I put it on my YouTube channel because he said there's going to be a ship over here, ships over here, by the lake nearby. There's loads of sightings here by the lake because there's a portal here, but that's another story. And he predicted it, and he was right. They turned up within 2 or 3 hours of when he said they would. And Patrick noticed the same thing. He said that they are triggered. Like, I've got an infrared I'm looking for it, an infrared torch here somewhere, and you point that up in the sky, they will arrive. But I've been able to call them in for the last 6 years as well.
How do you call
there's
them in?
Well, telepathically.
Right.
It's been a party trick of mine for quite a while. I've been to quite a few. I just, call them in, and then they turn up, and it's like, oh wow, and people like Chris Bledsoe, who I've only just discovered, have been saying this for like 15 years, 20 years as well. It's not just me, there's loads of us. So there's more Patrick thinks there's a connection between things that trigger a defense network like infrared, because that makes them come and investigate, and then they scan, and then there are high microwave frequencies emitted, and he said that matches the mobile net. He worked out there's a network of them, and anyway, the small ones are the ones that make the crop circles very quickly. If you go and look up,
no, why do they make the crop circles?
Well, if you look up Chris Everard, Enigma TV, I think it is, he posted videos on this 20 years ago that I watched, which showed these things making the crop circles in seconds flat. Just amazing how they did it. And if you look at proper crop circles, it's bent there. It's not snaps. It's extraordinary. The patterns are extraordinary because they're communicating in some way, with us. And why is it always around Wiltshire? But it's not just there. But I don't know all of the answers to this. What I know is that they're real, and there is a spiritual connection to this, which I am not fully au fait with, because I think a lot of us that are contactees are given information that is necessary for us to go to the next step. So I think it's a need to know basis. And I think that's the whole point of this spiritual awakening that's going on worldwide, is that we get to know stuff as we're ready for it, because God basically is trying to save as many of us as possible. Because if all this information came out at once, there's going to be people typing, now this guy's a nutter, I'm out of here, I thought this was a politics channel, what are you doing, Rich, and all that kind of stuff. Fine, whatever. But if the whole population knew all of the stuff that's been going on, and that our whole lives have been a lie, people would just kill themselves.
Yes,
they would literally end their lives, because it would bring into question everything they thought they knew about existence.
Yeah, well, I think where it comes into politics is the whole notion of disclosure, that the government, the US government in particular, will come out and say, and there's been little leaks or suggestions, will say, look, we've had contact or interaction or knowledge of interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings, non-human intelligences. And when that comes out, if it comes out, and you mentioned it right at the beginning, I think it's going to be an assault, a subversion of religion.
Well, exactly. That's the big problem. So, what's been interesting about the Pope this week is that he went and did a thing at a Muslim thing, and and people.
Yeah, there's a prayer room or something. That's a Muslim prayer room in the Vatican that's been set up.
Yeah, so you've got, such a thorny subject, religion, but part of the New World Order plan was to bring out a one world religion. So what we're seeing with the Pope doing that is those steps. I think what we're seeing is a facsimile Pope, and doing a facsimile version of the New World Order to show people. Okay, right. So that's my opinion. Like, I could be wrong. We could get taken over the New World Order, and that's it. I'm done. I'm off. I'm out of here. But if I'm right, then it's very interesting to see how people have to be eased through this. It's not, you can't just say your God doesn't exist, because nobody likes that.
No.
Nobody
Yeah.
likes that. Nobody likes that, and you got to respect people's view. And
Well, you got to communicate with them in such a way that you can carry them with you.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want true unity, where we're all working together, regardless of people's beliefs. I loved growing up in Britain with all these different people and different beliefs and everything, and we all got on. We could all argue but discuss things, and that just disappeared like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. But I think it is disclosure. We are going to find out that a lot of the humans on this planet aren't human.
Right. Now, where the other place where it comes into hard politics or the ethos of my channel is I'm not interested in my channel becoming an echo chamber.
No,
No. Full of just anti-Trump people or pro-Trump people or because what I do as a social worker is I look at something from all sorts of angles to try and understand what's going on. And I think it's the same thing with life.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on? Let me use this model. Let me use that model and take a look through there. Okay.
Well, it is all connected. You can't disassociate politics from any of this stuff that's happening, because it's all connected.
Yeah. We can't even disassociate politics from religion, because there are people, major actors, carrying out certain activities that impact on us because of their relationship to religion. There you go. All right, Mark, absolutely fabulous talking to you. I'm so glad we made this happen. Look forward to having you on again same time. And if you, what can I say? What can I say? How many times did I do this in this video today? I think that should be some sort of measure, a quotient.
I think you're acting. You know all of this anyway.
I don't. I really don't. Some of it I've come across, but some of it I've been on the edge of.
Yeah.
And then you articulate it in such a way that suggests to me, and you've said so, you've really looked at this and stuff. I'm like, bloody hell.
Well, it's the same thing I say to my kids. You question everything, including this. Question everything I've said. Go and do your own research. This is just my opinion based upon my life experience. And but it's an individual journey. This is a spiritual awakening, a spiritual war, and everybody is going through their own version of this, and everybody's at a different level, and there's no competition. It's just like your journey. And I think I'm here to talk like this because I've had my own journey that's been a bit bonkers, and take it or leave it, but do your own research.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much. markatwoodshow.com. Thank you, everybody, for watching, commenting, liking. Thank you for supporting me on Ko-fi.com. And also thank you for signing up to my newsletter, richdoespolitics.com. This is Rich and Mark signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.